To complete the most significant news for this day, Y News continues. Here are the top stories. Former presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque made a surprise move in the last day of filing of certificate of candidacy when he formalized his bid for a Senate seat. This was after he announced days ago that he was considering the advice of President Rodrigo Duterte for him to run for a lower position. During a press briefing, Roque said his main reason for finally running as senator is to continue the legacy of one of the most brilliant senators in history, late Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago.
Ang aking babala, yung mga korap, yung mga bobo, yung mga tiwali sa gobyerno, mumultohin na po kayo ni Miriam Defensor Santiago sa pagkatao ni Harry Roque.
Aside from Roque, other personalities headlining the last day of COC filing are Senator Sani Angara, who is seeking a second term, former Senate President Juan Ponce Enrile, who personally showed up at the COMELEC main office to rectify some errors in his COC. The 94-year-old veteran lawmaker also insisted he is not physically decrepit to run for public office. Also declaring their bid to join the senatorial race are detained former Senator Ramon Bong Revilla Jr. through his wife Bacoor City Mayor Lani Mercado, former DILG Secretary Rafael Alunan, former journalist Jiggy Manicad, and presidential political advisor Francis Tolentino. Meanwhile, the Liberal Party has yet to declare its official senatorial lineup for the 2019 midterm elections, but 6 personalities have already filed their candidacies under the LP banner. These are re-electionist Senator Bam Aquino, former Congressman Erin Tañada, College of Law Dean Jose Manuel Diokno, Marawi evacuee leader Samira Gutok, Magdalo Party List Representative Gary Alejano, and former Senator Mar Rojas. According to LP President Senator Kiko Pangilinan, now that Rojas is on board, the opposition coalition is getting firmer. The Liberal Party is also eyeing to include in its senatorial lineup former Solicitor General Florin Hilbay and election lawyer Romulo Macalinta. The Liberal Party is expected to present their senatorial lineup before the campaign season starts. The Commission on Elections will not give an extension for the filing of certificates of candidacies or COCs for the senatorial race and certificates of nomination and acceptance for CONA for party list groups for the May 2019 midterm election. After today's deadline of COC filing, COMELEC will now start the evaluation of COCs to cleanse the list of candidates. Aiko Miguel will tell us why.
The main entrance of Palacio del Gobernador was ceremonially closed by COMELEC commissioners today at exactly 5 in the afternoon. Commission on Elections have decided not to set an extension for the filing of candidacy. The poll body has strictly implemented the 30-meter radius upon closing the gates.
So we will observe the rule of the 30-meter radius. Whoever is within that radius, we will accommodate them. We will be giving out numbers to all these prospective candidates, and we will finish the processing of their COCs and CONAs and beyond 5 o'clock.
It has been noticeable that known political personalities continuously arrived this last day, like former Senate President Juan Ponce Enrile and former presidential spokesperson Harry Roque. Yesterday and today count the most number of filers and even the last-minute aspirants. The final COC count for the senatorial race is 152 and 185 CONAs for party list groups for the May 2019 midterm elections. Meanwhile, COMELEC is yet to validate the listed untoward incidents, whether they are election-related.
Cumulative over the last 4 days, 6 incidents. Okay, 6 incidents. There was 1 murder, there was 1 homicide, 1 explosion, and 3 others. All of which are still being validated if election-related. No?
COMELEC clarified there was no standoff during the COC filing of SAP Bong Go, wherein dozens of SAP Bong Go supporters occupied the COC filing area. After the incident, COMELEC added manpower on each security station.
When we investigated the event or what happened, it turns out that there were other people who were joining the entourage, no, or the companions, and so it appeared when they got here that there were too many companions of one candidate, when in fact these were companions drawn from various other candidacies.
The poll body reminds aspirants that they can submit substitution for candidacy until November 29, 2018. COMELEC also set December 15, 2018 for the issuance of the official list of candidates for the May 2019 midterm elections. The campaign period for senatorial candidates and party list groups will be from February 12 to May 11, 2019, while the campaign period for members of the House of Representatives and regional, provincial, city and municipal officials will be on May 11, 2019. And in accordance with Resolution number 10429, election period is set on January 13 until July 12, 2019, in which gun ban will also take effect. Election day will be on May 13, 2019, Monday. Aiko Miguel, UNTV, News and Rescue, Manila.
In other news, the Philippine Competition Commission has ordered Uber and Grab Philippines to pay a total of 16 million pesos for allegedly violating key provisions of the interim measures order during the merger review period. In a breakdown provided by the PCC, Grab PH and Uber are collectively ordered to pay 4 million pesos for executing their agreement during the review period. Grab was also fined with 8 million pesos while Uber with 4 million for failing to maintain the pre-merger business conditions. The antitrust body also notes that Uber and Grab Philippines violated 2 of the 7 interim measures with 10 counts of violations.
Dahil sa pag-comply nila sa LTFRB order, ay kinailangan namin i-reduce ang fines ng Uber, which is why kung makikita natin, 8 million po ang fines na inimpose sa Grab. Para sa Uber naman ay 4 million pesos lamang.
The PCC warns that if the two firms fail to comply within 45 days, they will have to pay a fine of 16 million pesos each day. Grab PH meanwhile said in a statement they are now studying their legal options with regards to the fine imposed by the PCC. In other news, the Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, is confident that the budget for the free tertiary education program next year will not be affected by the suspension of the second tranche of the fuel excise taxes. This is following the assurance given by Budget Secretary Benjamin Diokno that the government's assistance for poor Filipinos, such as the conditional and unconditional cash transfer program, will not suffer despite the deferment of the next fuel excise taxes scheduled in 2009.
We will be in close coordination with DOF so that yung provision for education will somehow not be affected by any deduction.
However, Secretary Diokno warns of reduced budget in 2019 for the government's fuel subsidy program for jeepney drivers amid spiking oil prices. The government has initially allotted 3.2 billion pesos for the program next year, but with the potential revenue losses amounting to 40 billion pesos. The budget secretary says they might only appropriate 977 million pesos for the fuel subsidy.
As I said, the Pantawid Pasada for next year is premised on the 2 peso adjustment, right? Now, if the 2 peso adjustment is suspended, then the Pantawid Pasada benefits will be based on the 2018, but that will continue.
Okay.
The anniversary to mark the liberation of Marawi City from the hands of Maute ISIS militants elicited mixed sentiments as the government honored the heroes who sacrificed their lives to prevent extremists from invading the country. The liberation of Marawi City came at the cost of lives of 168 government soldiers and 87 civilians. Some 974 militants, including 13 foreigners, were killed in the offensive. The government has vowed to assist residents who had lost their homes and livelihood as a result of the conflict in Marawi City. However, it can only provide so much. To date, the task force Bangon Marawi has yet to begin the debris cleaning in areas that were heavily ravaged by the war.
In the next few days, siguro we will see the deployment of heavy equipment, mga gamit na gagamitin para sa debris clearing, initially sectors 1 and 2.
Civil society groups in Marawi City has been increasingly demanding that the government begin efforts to return the war-torn city back to normalcy. The Marawi City government also admits to getting impatient with the snail-paced reconstruction process, though he is grateful for the national government's efforts.
Ako'y naiinip, but at the same time, naiintindihan ko po ang ating gobyerno. Dahil ako po ay nasa gobyerno, alam ko po yung mga proseso. Even sa local po, yung pag-implement natin ng mga projects ay dumadaan ho sa proseso.
And for the news abroad, here's Stephanie C. live from Hong Kong. Stephanie, good evening.
Good evening, William. Switzerland has been dethroned by the United States after 9 years of reigning as the world's most competitive economy, according to revamped annual global rankings by the World Economic Forum. Beverly Saison tells us why.
Switzerland's 9-year streak as the world's most competitive economy came to an end on Wednesday after it was dethroned by the United States in an annual league table published by the World Economic Forum, or WEF. A root and branch revamp of the WEF's rankings, reoriented towards future technology-driven growth, pushed Switzerland into 4th place, with Singapore 2nd and Germany 3rd out of 140 countries, each marked on a scale from 0 to 100.
Why they do well? They're an innovation powerhouse. They do well in terms of labor markets. They do well in terms of market size. They do fairly well in terms of institutions, but there are also a lot of worrying signs. So the U.S. is one of the lowest ranked G20 economies when it comes to health. There are concerns about freedom of the press. There are concerns about judicial independence. And so there are a number of these softer factors that could have an implication for the country's competitiveness in the longer term.
The old ranking had docked marks from the United States for its macroeconomic environment, high government debt being a particular weakness. But the new rankings awarded it 99.2 for debt dynamics, an almost perfect score. WEF's experts denied that the analysis had been remodeled to flatter U.S. President Donald Trump, who topped the bill at the WEF's annual meeting at Davos in January, bringing his America's First message to the world's elite.
The old index and new index are apples and oranges. The reason the new index has been built is because we've learned so much about what drives economic growth and growth in income in the long term.
The 98 indicators in the index were drawn from international organizations and a survey of company executives, and largely reflected long-term policies such as investing in digital skills, she said. That means Switzerland could take a while to win back its crown. Zahidi said it was a pillar of innovation but needed to work on its entrepreneurial mindset.
You need to be able to have this ability to take risks and to use some of these newer technologies to actually create new businesses, and not just to create new businesses, but take them all the way from idea to actual commercialization.
Further down the rankings, China was in 28th place, Russia was 43rd, but India was 58th, a big slide from 40th under the old methodology last year. Saudi Arabia came 39th, a placing that could potentially be affected by the unfolding story of missing Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, Zahidi said. The bottom 30 were almost exclusively African countries, although Haiti and Yemen squeezed ahead of last place Chad, which scored 35.5. Beverly Saison, UNTV News and Rescue, USA.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says that Saudi leaders have strongly denied any knowledge of what took place in their Istanbul consulate during a visit by U.S.-based Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Pompeo met with Saudi King Salman, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and Foreign Minister Adel Al-Jubeir on Tuesday. Pompeo adds that Saudi Arabia's leadership had assured him of their commitment to investigate the disappearance of Khashoggi and promised to hold anyone found guilty of wrongdoing to account. Khashoggi, a U.S. resident and leading critic of the Saudi crown prince, vanished after entering the Saudi consulate in Istanbul on October 2nd. Turkish officials say they believe he was murdered there and his body removed, which the Saudis strongly deny. Female candidates in the upcoming Afghanistan parliamentary elections are hoping to bring change as they brave violence and opposition from social conservatives during the campaign period. Here's why from Kath Dumaraos.
Zargona Baluch is a mother of 8 and a candidate running for a seat in Afghanistan's upcoming parliamentary elections on Saturday. She is one of 417 female candidates, more than ever before, set to stand in the election this year, braving violence and opposition from social conservatives in a campaign seen as a test of the war-torn nation's democratic institutions.
Kandahar is a conservative society, and women have traditionally played a very weak role in politics. But I can see now that people are changing and they are thinking differently nowadays.
Her economics degree and former work with the United Nations Human Settlements Program has seen her win support from many men. 26-year-old Mariam Sama recently quit her job as a TV presenter to enter politics and is in the midst of campaigning despite the dangers.
If I win, I am going to create a special judicial committee that can follow up on specific legal cases for women. When you see the situation of women in Afghanistan, you would know we really need a special focus.
Campaigning is fraught with risks regardless of gender. 5 candidates, all men, have been killed in separate attacks. Another 2 have been abducted, and 4 others have been wounded by hardline Islamist militants, election officials said. For women, though, there are additional challenges. As well as facing sexual harassment, many women MPs complain they are not taken seriously by their male counterparts.
In a male-dominant society, religious, conservative, it's really hard for a woman to convince male who are in the control of everything. They are controlling politics, property, wealth, and everything.
The growing involvement of women has been welcomed by the United Nations and other international bodies, which see the elections as a vital step in building trust in democratic processes. Under the Constitution, at least 68 of the 250 seats in the lower house of parliament are reserved for women. The quota means that Afghanistan fares better in a simple measure of female representation in the legislature than some Western nations. 28% of seats in the lower house are currently held by women, 8 points higher than the U.S. House of Representatives. However, women's rights advocates say that despite the heavy emphasis placed on promoting equality by international donors, age-old scourges such as child marriage or the murder of women by family members in so-called honor killings remain rife. Afghan girls still routinely receive less schooling than boys. Kat Dumaraos, UNTV News and Rescue.
And those are the news from the other parts of the world. Back to you, William.
Thank you very much, Stephanie C., live from Hong Kong. A Royal Opera House in London, United Kingdom is doing workshop courses for young children that lets them play, do impressions, and mimic a costume performer. Let's find out why from Leslie Longbowen.
Welcome to London's Royal Opera House, where Opera Dots, a workshop for toddlers, aims to build a future fan base one hop at a time. Beneath an elegant iron and glass ceiling, a group of young guests giggle on a multicolored play mat as they mimic a costumed performer singing and dancing her way through Hansel and Gretel. Some of the children do boisterous impressions of a scary witch, luring the innocent pair into her house of sweets. According to annual reports from the Royal Opera House, attendance at London's most historic opera venue has fallen by 137,000 since 2013. The program aims to turn the tide by making the art more accessible to a younger generation, a much younger generation.
Well, it was due to the growing evidence around the importance of early years education. So what we want to do as part of the Open Up programme is have a really diverse range of programmes and workshops so that all people of all ages could access the Royal Opera House.
The course begins with babies as young as 3 months and goes up to 5 years old.
All people can engage in opera, and to ensure that authentic art form is offered right from the beginning, really.
2-year-old Emily is already on her way to a lifetime love of opera. She particularly likes the hopping.
I think it's important for education, cultural education, and broad interests, and an early introduction to something that gives you great pleasure later in life.
Leslie Longboan, UNTV News and Rescue.
And those are the reasons behind the news, October 17, 2018. On behalf of Rheena, Villamor-Camara, and Angelo Castro III, I am William Thio. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Good evening.